Anger over Trump's policies and rhetoric is projected to significantly reduce international travel to the U.S., according to Tourism Economics. The forecasting firm now predicts a 9.4% drop in international arrivals this year, nearly double its previous forecast of a 5% decline from February. At the beginning of the year, the outlook had been optimistic, with projections of a 9% increase in visitors from 2024. Tourism Economics President Adam Sachs pointed to recent high-profile detentions of European tourists and growing frustration over Trump's tariffs, his approach to Canada and Greenland, and his confrontation with Ukraine's president as key factors behind the downturn. With each policy development, each rhetorical missive, we're just seeing unforced error after unforced error in the administration, Sachs said. It has a direct impact on international travel to the U.S. The anticipated decline in tourism is expected to hit airlines, hotels, national parks, and other destinations. Travel from Canada alone is forecast to fall 20%. Severely affecting states like New York and Michigan, as well as major tourist hubs like California, Nevada, and Florida. The U.S. Travel Association echoed the warning, noting that even a 10% drop in Canadian travel could result in 2 million fewer visits, $2.1 billion in lost revenue, and 14,000 job losses. Air Canada also reported a 10% decrease in U.S. bookings for April through September compared to the same time last year. Sachs estimates international visitors will spend $9 billion less in the U.S. than they did in 2024, when international tourism saw a 9.1% increase. The irony is that the tariffs are being put in place to help right the trade deficit, he said. But they're harming the trade balance by causing fewer international travelers to come and spend money here. Sachs also noted that international arrivals had been close to recovering to 2019 levels before this latest downturn. Now, he said, I don't think we'll see those numbers again until 2029. Saskatoon's sharp drop in homicides lacks clear cause. Poll is saying early April 2024, Saskatoon police were in crisis mode, responding to a wave of killings. Within the first 3 months, 5 people had already died violently. Then, in just 2 weeks, another 3 homicides occurred, including two within a single day. Saskatoon Police Service SPS data shows that from January to March 2023, there were 622 reported assaults. In the same period this year, that number is nearly identical at 628. Yet the contrast in homicides is stark. Just 1 recorded so far in 2024, and the suspect was arrested within hours. Staff Sergeant Corey Lenius of the SPS Major Crimes Unit says these kinds of fluctuations aren't uncommon. They're going to happen. They're volatile situations that occur. He explained, unfortunately, the Major Crime Unit is a reactive unit. We come to it once it's happened already. Many homicides, he noted, stem from unpredictable factors. Many times it is a crime of opportunity, a crime of passion, a crime of alcohol and drug-related issues, and there's really no way to predict those homicides. In response to last year's spike, police introduced several measures, targeting high-risk individuals, establishing a warrant enforcement unit, and improving coordination between patrol and investigative teams. Still, Lenius believes sheer chance plays a role, along with quicker, more effective emergency response. Thanks to better training, more victims are surviving injuries that would once have been fatal. Reflecting on the pressure of 2023, he said, when you look back to last year, those 8 early ones really took a toll on our unit and human resources and, mental health, and all those things. We will take this as a win right now. Polls suggest Canada's Conservative Party may win the next federal election, but are the Liberals really out of the game? Prime Minister Mark Carney triggered a snap election on March 23, urging Canadians to decide which party is best positioned to handle the country's pressing issues. Recent data shows a surprising shift. The Liberal Party, now led by Carney after Justin Trudeau's resignation in January 2025, has erased a significant polling gap and is now neck-and-neck with the Conservatives. Under Pierre Poilievre's leadership, the Liberals' resurgence has also coincided with Donald Trump's return to the U.S. presidency, a development influencing the Canadian political landscape. Poilievre, who has been a fierce critic of the Trudeau administration since becoming Conservative leader in 2022, was widely expected to lead his party to a decisive win. But that narrative is being challenged. Although some polls show Liberals slightly ahead, a March 23 survey by Abacus Data conducted before the election found the Conservatives leading with 39% of decided voters, followed by the Liberals at 36% and the NDP at 12%. Abacus cautioned that the top-line numbers mask significant movement in the underlying trends. The Liberals are gaining momentum in key provinces like Ontario and Quebec, while the Conservatives are making inroads with younger demographics. Demographically, the Liberals enjoy stronger support among women than men, while the Conservatives perform particularly well among older voters 60+. The report added, regionally, Ontario remains a battleground with both major parties nearly tied. In Quebec and Atlantic Canada, Liberals are leading, while the Conservatives dominate the Prairie provinces. In British Columbia, the race is tightening. Among young voters aged 18 to 29, the Conservatives hold a narrow 1-point lead 39% to 38%. For ages 35 to 44, the gap widens to a 6-point advantage. Voters aged 45 to 59 also lean Conservative by 8 points. Looking at past voting patterns, Abacus reported, the Liberals are retaining a large proportion of their past supporters, and they're drawing many who voted NDP last time. Meanwhile, Conservative retention remains fairly high, but there are small cracks in their coalition compared to past election cycles. While Trump's threats against Canada are making headlines and influencing the political narrative, most voters remain focused on domestic concerns. However, how each party plans to handle the Trump factor has become a key talking point on the campaign trail.
If you like this news and want more updates relating to this, please like, share, and subscribe.
Canada is struggling to counter Trump's tariffs due to a decade of poor economic growth under the Liberals. Mark Carney admits Canada can only control its own actions, but he also acknowledged during the leadership race that the economy was already weak, citing runaway immigration and government spending that grew over 9% year after year after year, twice the rate of growth of our economy. The Liberal government now has the worst real GDP per capita growth since the Great Depression under R.B. Bennett. This decline stems from Trudeau-era anti-growth policies, especially targeting the energy sector. Carney supports continuing these measures, like Bill C-69, the No Pipelines Law, which blocks access to global markets for Canadian oil and gas, forcing sales to the U.S. at steep discounts and costing Canada tens of billions annually. The Liberals also missed their 2023-24 deficit target by 54%, spending $61.9 billion instead of $40.1 billion. Canada's labor market contracts by 32,600 jobs in March. Employment in Canada declined in March, with the country losing 32,600 jobs and the unemployment rate edging up to 6.7%, according to data released Friday. The report points to growing uncertainty, particularly around tariffs and their implementation, as a drag on hiring activity and a contributor to recent layoffs. Expert commentary. Andrew Grantham, senior economist, CIBC Capital Markets. The wheels may be starting to fall off the Canadian labor market, with a 33,000 decline in jobs during March falling well short of consensus forecasts for a 1% gain. Grantham added that while the data was weaker than expected, upcoming Bank of Canada surveys and shifts in global risk sentiment will likely influence whether the central bank continues cutting interest rates or opts to hold steady at its next meeting. Overall, today's report was clearly weaker than expected, although next week's box surveys and global risk sentiment will also be key in determining whether the bank continues to cut interest rates or elects to skip a meeting later this month. Derek Holt, Vice President, Capital Markets Economics, Scotiabank. There was high bread, so the details tend to bolster how bad the headline was, Holt remarked. However, he noted that seasonal adjustments may have exaggerated the negative picture. The one thing I would flag though is that I think we are somewhat cooking the books in terms of the seasonal adjustment factors. It was the lowest seasonal adjustment factor for the month of March on record, so that amplified or distorted some of the downside. It was soft, but I think that's a big caveat around the number. Sobering reality for Trump as late-night rants reveal frustration over negative press 70 days into his second term. Donald Trump's post-election honeymoon is unraveling. Embarrassing missteps by his administration, growing dissent from key allies, and pushback from Republican ranks have left him frustrated, leading to late-night calls where he vents about the sobering reality he now faces. Jonathan Lemire of The Atlantic reports that Trump has been knocked off his stride, particularly due to the Signalgate scandal where National Security Advisor Mike Waltz inadvertently added the Atlantic's editor, Jeffrey Goldberg, to a Signal chat discussing attack plans on Houthi rebels. Trump, unwilling to appear as if he is caving to media pressure, has refrained from firing Waltz but remains furious, fuming over the fact that Goldberg's number was in Waltz's phone. According to Lemire, Trump has recently taken to phoning allies late at night to complain about a series of negative stories. His anger has also been fueled by the failure of his high-profile efforts to end the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, as fighting has only escalated. The report notes, Trump has watched as a ceasefire in Gaza has been shattered and as Vladimir Putin has refused to agree to American terms to bring a temporary halt to the fighting in Europe. On immigration, while Trump initially welcomed coverage of his aggressive deportation policies, frustration set in when even right-wing voices questioned his approach, as Le Mirror reports. He was annoyed that friendly media voices including Joe Rogan questioned a lack of due process, and that the right-wing pundit in Coulter openly balked at the arrest of a Columbia University graduate student who led pro-Palestine protests. The administration is hoping that Trump's upcoming Liberation Day event will help reset the narrative, but concerns remain. One GOP strategist warned, recessions and inflation are politically devastating for any president. Trump is risking both with his trade wars, so it's understandably making his allies extremely nervous. As tensions rise within his inner circle and criticism mounts, Trump's late-night rants suggest a president increasingly on edge, grappling with a second term that is proving far more turbulent than expected.